midnight screams.
I would give an account of how long I've been here, except I have no idea. Time isn't right here, nor is anything else. The large office space with dozens of cubicles. There's always someone typing, someone on the phone. The clicking of keyboards occasionally mixed with the sound of hushed conversation. I know I haven't always been here. I can remember the outside world, and so can everyone else, but we never leave. There is no time in this place, no end of shift, no clock out. That's not to say there are no clocks. There are. They are just meaningless. The ones mounted on the far wall don't even have numbers. The hands just tick around empty spaces. The computers aren't any better. The numbers displayed are utterly meaningless and random. Sometimes never changing. Other times changing too fast to process. We do get breaks, though. I couldn't tell you how we know when it's time, except that it stops being work time. Then we get to do something else. We don't have many options. A bathroom break is always a good option. Sometimes, if you go to the break room, you can find something to eat in a container with your name on it in the fridge. There are, of course, the vending machines. Someone always has spare change, and sometimes I do. Most people just stand there awkwardly, making small talk until it's time to go back to work, stretching out their stiff legs and trying to be a living animal for a little while. We don't have to work. We have the whole internet available to us. The old folk often sneakily play solitaire when they think no one is looking. Some watch TV. One younger man even figured out how to download video games, though no one besides him is ever online at all. We all have our distractions. Eventually, though, you do find yourself working, crossing I's and dotting T's. Sometimes you get to draw a little line and make an L. Some people work with numbers instead, adding up random numbers into totals only to have to do it all over again, but backwards. Things aren't by any means terrible. We never get sleepy, and when we start getting tired, we get a break. But it's just never ending. There's nothing to truly do. No way for us to leave. I don't even know if there are people out there to read this post. Anyone else in the office reading this, do say hello. All the other doors just lead to more office space with more cubicles. There's no way to tell the time. There are no windows anywhere. No stairs or elevators. Just more of this place. Every cubicle is a little different, a hint of humanity in this bland, liminal, unending space. Some are perfectly normal. Others are unfashionably bizarre. Some are simply horrifying. I haven't dared to venture too far. I don't want to get lost and lose my cubicle. It's the only personalized thing I have here. A photo of my family, a pack of gum that always seems to be full, and a stress ball that always comes back no matter how far I throw it. I've tried doing everything else to pass the time. One can only stare at a computer for so long. But there just isn't anything to do. Time only stays still as long as you observe it. I spent an eternity drawing a large mural with pens. Then I blinked, and it was gone. We tried playing office games once, but everyone had to blink eventually, and then everything just went back to how it was. It's like every piece of this space is its own time, all jumbled together inside a blender. We can only hold spaces together for so long before they fly apart. Except there doesn't seem to be an end. There are a few phone chargers we pass around, but no one outside of the office ever responds to texts or calls. I hope my family is well. It's either been lifetimes since I've seen them, or maybe simply moments. None of it means anything here. Then there are the managers. Those pulsing masses of incandescent flesh are best avoided. No one is really sure what they want. but they always ensure we get some work done. Really, we are left to our own regard. There's always something to do, but never something to be done. There's no meaning or purpose to what we do. No matter how much we invent, experiment with, or theorize, we still just end up doing the same unimportant thing for eternity. There are always more forms to sign, more coffee to refill, and more typos to correct. At least until the next break. No one knows who Needle Jack is or where he comes from, but every time someone goes to our local clinic to get their blood drawn, he's there. He's always humming his strange tune and asking people how they feel about syringes. "How many times have you drawn this year?" he asked one patient. "Want to pull more blood?" he questioned another. It's so odd. The nurses call him Needle Jack because that's all he seems to care about. The staff have tried to get rid of him. Many have asked the police to escort him off grounds. But no matter how many times he's arrested, he comes back as cheerful as ever. At first, I thought this was all a made-up legend, something to scare people off who were afraid to get their blood drawn. But when I went to the clinic to do my own work, I ran into him. As soon as I entered the building, the staff seemed amped up, like they were at the end of their nerves. "I don't think we have any space today," the receptionist said, tapping keys on her computer. I glanced out the window, exhausted, then pivoted back to the clock. My husband, Greg, was at home watching our newborn, Chloe. Today was the only day I could make an appointment. I begged her to let me in. "I'll see what I can do." She recorded my information. "Please have a seat. If there's an opening, a nurse will call you." I transferred my belongings to a chair and waited. I found it frightening that everyone seemed so on edge. The janitor mopping the floor kept his eyes on the doors and windows at all times. An older patient next to me peered over her shoulder as if expecting someone to harass her. Now I understand why everyone appeared so disturbed. They were waiting for Needle Jack to arrive, and arrive he did. After about 5 minutes, a nurse came out and called my name. "Sarah?" I stood and followed her into the back. I settled into a chair and extended my arm to allow easy access to a vein. As soon as she inserted the point, a loud humming grew from the hall. "What is that?" "Oh, that's just Jack. He's a patient at this location. Do your best to ignore him." I darted my eyes away from the noise, but his grating voice filled my ears. "Can you ask him to pipe down?" "Of course." She glanced toward the hall, her voice shaking. "Jack, will you please be quiet? You're disturbing a patient." "Yes. Oh, yes. I'm sorry." For the next 30 seconds, the only sound came from the nurse as she switched out the vials on my syringe. One click, then another. All done. She taped gauze onto my arm. "Feel free to sit for a few moments. You might feel dizzy." I glanced at my phone. It was almost 1 o'clock, well past time to get back home and feed Chloe. I stood slowly and progressed toward the hall. When I stepped inside, there he was, a long-legged, skinny man who wore black jeans and a striped shirt. His arms appeared too short for his body and half. His hair was trimmed into a bowl cut. "I see you got your blood work done," he said, grinning. "My name is Jack. I just love getting my blood drawn." He waddled up to me and got inches from my face. "Dude!" My mind screamed as I scooted past him. "Back off! Would you like to see my blood drawn?" "No! Too bad." He pulled out an unused syringe and jammed it into his vein. Feels so good. I was so mortified that I sprinted to the counter and told the receptionist what had happened. "Yes, I know," she admitted. "That's Jack. He's a regular here. Why does everyone keep saying that? Because he's here almost every day. Do something about it. Throw him out. I'm sorry, I heard his wispy voice behind me. Needle Jack was holding the blood-filled syringe he had just pulled from his vein. Oh, God. I nearly gagged as he licked the vial. Beautiful, he said. So beautiful. On the drive home, I was stunned. Who was he? Why was he there? Why couldn't anyone get rid of him? Once I got home and fed Chloe, I did some digging online. Turns out Needle Jack was a bit of a local legend. Apparently, he'd been terrified of needles as a child. Whenever his mom had brought him to a clinic, he'd scream, "No, Mommy, please, don't let them poke me." But then one day, a mysterious woman came in and whispered something into his ear. He calmed down instantly and allowed the nurses to draw his blood. From that day on, the boy became obsessed with needles, even going so far as to demonstrate how to insert them into his veins for all to see. Even some of the clinic's online reviews mentioned him. Service is fine, but that needle guy is weird. Every time I go in, he's there talking to people and it creeps me out. Why won't the staff get rid of him? 2 months later, I found out why. I was on my way home and headed downtown for an errand. Along the route, my front driver's side tire blew out. Shit! I pulled into the nearest repair shop. Coincidentally, it just so happened to be a block away from the clinic. No way, I mused, taking in the scene. I swaddled Chloe and wandered out to the sidewalk, figuring maybe I should drop in. I had 30 minutes to kill. I could ask the nurses a few more questions, but it all seemed so silly. Regardless, I felt compelled to visit the building. When I entered, the front desk was empty. There were no patients in the lobby either. Must be a slow day. Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, God. I spun on my heel, my stomach turning. There he is. Why did I come here? I pulled Chloe close and headed for the exit. But before I could reach the door, Needle Jack stepped in, blocking my path. I was hoping you'd return. And even better, you've brought your child. What do you want from me? Your blood. He gestured to my arm. Her blood. It's essential to my survival. My eyes darted to the phone door at the other end of the lobby. After each test, I take a sample. A little taste here and there. Blood keeps me strong, but a child's is best. He pulled a syringe from his pocket. If I could just draw a little, I promise it won't hurt. Get away from me! I cradled Chloe's head and dashed to the far end of the room, sprinting outside. I'd nearly reached the crosswalk when I glanced back and saw Jack gaining on us. Please, Sarah, give me her blood. I stopped at the end of the sidewalk. The auto shop was just across the street. But traffic was blazing. Damn! I glanced both ways and dashed into the road, barely missing a semi. A loud honk split my ears as I reached the shop's parking lot, not even blinking. When I made it to the main doors, an agonizing scream caught my ears. I turned and gasped at the sight of Needle Jack, sprawled in the road, his torso twisted like a rotini noodle. A car had struck him head-on. Vehicles screeched to a halt on all sides of him. Don't worry, Sarah, he gasped and fell back into a mix of his own entrails. I'll be back. I always come back. The strangest thing happened after Needle Jack died. Almost instantly, the nurses and patients at the clinic seemed to come to their senses. It was like a long-held curse had been lifted off them. What was it like working there? A news anchor asked one of the staff members. A prison, they responded. Jack made us give him every patient's blood. He'd torture us if we refused. Greg became disgusted with all the media attention. He begged us to move so we could enjoy a fresh start, but how could we do that? Chloe is older now and thriving in preschool. Our friendships with other parents have grown and our careers have blossomed. The only thing that bothers me are Jack's last words. "Don't worry, Sarah. I'll be back. I always come back. I wonder if he ever will." I was strolling the flea market. A month ago, I moved into my new apartment. It was small, but cozy. I needed lots of furniture and had been searching local flea markets and online sites for weeks. I was still missing a sofa, a night table, and a mirror for my bathroom. I looked at the items offered by both retailers and people from my neighborhood. Old watches, cameras, lamps, desks, and more. Every time I saw something that I liked, there was something wrong with it. A sofa with claw marks from pets everywhere. A night table with only 3 legs that cost more than if I would buy it new. Old cabinets that had been painted in awful colors. Then, after wandering through the endless rows of used items, I saw it. A beautiful but simple mirror offered as the only item on the table of a young man. He did not sell anything else, only the mirror. It had a stunning, antique frame around it, something you would expect in an old palace. I had a thing for antique furniture. My friends often joked that my new apartment would look like someone's grandfather chose the furniture. I looked at the price tag. "For free," it said. A mirror like this would get sold for a small fortune at every auction. I inspected it, but could not find any damage or other factors that would justify giving it away for free, so I immediately took it. The man looked at me like he felt guilty giving me the mirror, so I double-checked it again after bringing it home, but it was perfect. The first few days, I really enjoyed looking at myself in the mirror every morning. Due to the beautiful frame, it felt like I was an artwork worthy to be admired. I even thought about putting my signature in the bottom right of the mirror as a joke, like it was a painting. I showed the mirror to my friends, and they were in awe at its beauty, even though they still teased me about my home decor style. But after the first few days, something felt off. Every time I looked at the mirror, it seemed like my reflection was slightly delayed, almost unnoticeable. Sometimes my fingers moved slightly differently, like they were trying to go in a different direction, similar to a bad connection in a video game. I did not think about it much. I told myself that maybe it was connected to my migraine, and my brain was playing tricks on me while having strong headaches. Every morning, I was paying closer attention to my reflection. Sometimes it seemed like my own eyes didn't meet my gaze. Other times my body position was ever so slightly off, but it got worse. One day, I was woken up by my alarm and walked into my bathroom to get ready for work when I froze. My reflection was smiling at me, a wide, maniacal smile with an anticipating gaze. My hands instinctively went up to my face to check if I was actually smiling. I was not. The next days, I dreaded looking in the mirror. I often felt cold sweat on my body when looking in the mirror. It was always smiling. It still mirrored my movements, but it felt half-hearted. I already made up my mind. I was going to throw the mirror away as soon as possible. One morning, I entered the bathroom, my reflection grinning from ear to ear. I lifted my hands to grab the mirror and take it off the wall. Before I could reach the mirror, my reflection lifted its left hand and grabbed my arm. I looked at the mirror, too shocked to even move my fingers. The nails of the reflection dug deep into my skin and started pulling me into the mirror while simultaneously moving its body outwards. I couldn't move. I was looking outside of the mirror. What had been my reflection before was now a man in his 30s looking at me. He tilted his head. I did too. I had no control over my body. I do everything the man outside the mirror did. He gave me a sad smile and said, "I'm sorry." He grabbed the mirror and carried it outside, all while I was horrified and claustrophobic, having no choice but to mirror his every move. He placed the mirror on the sidewalk with a note, "For free." The next hour or so I often saw passerbys walking by, looking at the mirror, fixing their hair. They did not see me in the mirror, they saw themselves. I tried to tell my brain to more independently, but I only moved when they did. I was imprisoned in a sheet of glass, unsure if I could ever escape. After what felt like an eternity, a young man saw the mirror, looked it up and down, and grabbed it. He carried the mirror 2 streets further east and into a small apartment. He seemed to like the mirror a lot and placed it inside his bedroom next to a wardrobe. I tried to scream for help, but I could not move a single muscle. I only moved to mirror his body. Over the next days, I watched him try on his outfits, admire himself in the mirror, and fix his hair. I watched his entire daily routine, trapped inside this glass prison. Then, after weeks, when he was trying on a small earring with a glass diamond, I managed to move my finger. It was almost unnoticeable, but I did it. The new owner of the mirror noticed it, blinked a few times, and shrugged. He seemed to think that he imagined it. A wave of happiness flowed through my body. Maybe I could finally escape. Over the next few days, I managed to move more parts of my body, always forced to mirror his movements, but always slightly different. He seemed more concerned and confused every time I did it, and one day, the thrill of being able to move again became too big to contain. I smiled. My facial muscles started to obey me again. My smile widened, almost going from ear to ear. The man looked at the mirror, terrified. In his eyes I saw true fear. He ran out of the room. After he was gone, I noticed that with my facial muscles, most other limbs had started working again. I could move my arms, but when I tried to reach outward, I could only stretch my hands about 30 centimeters outwards, but my head and torso seemed to hit an invisible wall. I was still trapped. It dawned on me that the mirror needed a replacement for me, if I wanted to escape. Shortly after, I heard the door. The new owner of the mirror returned. I stopped smiling. Mirroring his moves and letting him think that he just imagined my smile in the morning, he came closer, looking slightly nervous, but relieved that his reflection was no longer smiling. 50 centimeters. 40. 30. My right hand shot forward and I managed to grab his arm. With all strength I had left, I clawed into his arm and pulled him towards me. He screamed, but he did not manage to escape my grasp. I pulled him into the mirror. At the same time, I moved my body outward and broke out of the mirror. We swapped places. I stood outside of the mirror and looked down on my body. I could move freely. I took a step to the right, then to the left. I was finally free. Then it dawned on me. The man. I trapped him inside the mirror. I looked back, saw my own reflection, filled with guilt and shame. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I grabbed the mirror and carried it outside. Using a pen and paper from the man's apartment, I wrote a small note. "For free." My brother, Kevin, not his real name, I'm trying to keep some anonymity, has always been outdoorsy. Growing up, he would wander off into the woods behind my parents' property and stay out there for hours. He said that being out in nature brought him a lot of peace. A few months ago, things kind of spiraled for him. He lost his girlfriend, his job, and his apartment within 6 weeks. He ended up moving back home with me and my parents to try and get back on his feet. It was hard to see him like that. I mean, he was never someone I would describe as an eternal optimist, but that little spark he always had was gone. This past spring, I found him sitting at the kitchen table in the middle of the night. He was picking apart a piece of cold pizza, and it was the first time I had seen him almost eat something in days. I told him maybe he should get back out into nature, take some hikes, or maybe do a solo camping weekend. I said that I had noticed he had seemed down lately, and maybe being out in the world could help me get back to himself. In the moment, I wasn't sure if he was really hearing me, but he took a bite of pizza, squeezed my hand, said he loved me, and went back to his bedroom. The next morning, he announced to my parents he was going to hike the Appalachian Trail. My mom was hesitant, but Kevin told her that he knew enough about himself to know that sitting at home in his room was causing more stress than if he could go out and just be in the place that made him feel most at ease. My dad just said that as long as Kev checked in every few days or so, he didn't see a problem with it. My dad pointed out that it wasn't like Kevin didn't have the experience. He was a Boy Scout turned Eagle Scout turned camping enthusiast. People do that hike all the time, Kathleen. If it were dangerous, no one would be bragging about it. I remember him saying those words exactly. I don't know why they stuck in my head the way they did, but maybe it was the way Kevin seemed to brighten up a little bit after my dad gave his blessing in a sort of roundabout way. The next 2 weeks were spent helping my brother pack what he would need, registering his hike, and buying a plane ticket to Georgia, where he would start his trip. The night he left, our mom was a mess. She kept fussing over him as if he wasn't a full-grown man. She kept asking him if he had everything he needed, and he just kept assuring her he did and would check in with us once he got to Trailhead. Looking back now, he seemed genuinely excited. If I had known what would happen, I would never let him leave. My brother called, like he said he would, just as he was beginning his trip. He even sent a photo in our family group chat that showed him up against a backdrop of purple-blue mountains and lush greenery. He had a thumbs up and his signature slightly off-center smirk. He wrote, "Finally made it. Love you guys. Talk when I get better reception." Over the next few days, Kevin would send a photo or video, usually of his surroundings, but occasionally he would send a selfie with the caption, "Proof of life." But as the days wore on, we stopped getting updates as frequently. What was a text at least once a day became a text once every 3 or 4 days. My dad blamed it on spotty cell reception, which made sense, and it wasn't as if the messages stopped altogether, and from what I could piece together from his photos and short text bursts, he was making good time. It was around a month and a half into his trip when we realized it had been almost 2 weeks without any communication from Kevin. We called the authorities. We gave them all the information that we had, but based on what we knew, it was hard to say he was even missing. As far as the police were concerned, he had gone off-grid, with the intent of going off-grid. Sending out search and rescue would cost thousands of dollars, and it could be a waste of resources, especially if there was someone else who needed it. They said they would put a notice out to the ridge runners, and if they saw Kevin, they were told to tell him to contact us. My mom was furious, but I couldn't necessarily blame the cops for their response. We had no evidence to support that Kev was anything but content out in the wilderness. A few days later, a text came through. Just a photo of sunset and the words, "Everything is okay here." That began the new normal of communication with my brother. There would be long stretches of time where we would hear nothing, just long enough for my mother to start panicking, and then we would get a blurry photo and a generic caption like, "Look what I saw today," or "Wish you were here." One night, while going through the photos he had sent, I realized in the background of every shot from before we had called the police was a black smudge. It was too blurry to properly make it out, and it didn't seem to be an animal or something caught moving in the camera lens. But after the first photo he had sent after we thought he was missing, the smudge was gone. Kevin came home earlier than expected. He also hadn't told anyone his plans. One night during dinner, there was a loud, sharp knock at the door. My dad got up to answer it, and there was Kevin. His hair was long and stringy. He had grown a patchy beard over his cheeks and jaw. His lips were dry and cracked, and his gums were coated in a dried layer of blood. He was rail thin. He had lost at least 30 pounds, and he wasn't a large man to begin with. His clothes were filthy, caked in mud and debris, and his shorts looked like they had been worn thin at the sole. My mother made a sound almost like a yelp and rushed over to him. The smell coming off him made me gag. It smelled like he had smeared rotting meat under his armpits. My dad just looked at him in shock. When he finally spoke, his voice was dry and raspy, as if he hadn't used it in weeks. "Mom," that was all he could say before he practically collapsed in her arms. I won't bore you guys with everything that happened after that. There was a lot of hugging, some tears, and then a very, very long shower. But something didn't feel right. Kev went to bed pretty much immediately after. He barely even looked at us. The next morning, he ate breakfast with a ferocity that made my skin crawl. He was gulping down huge mouthfuls of food, barely stopping to breath. My mom just kept piling his plate with bacon, eggs, and toast. He stopped only after he had consumed a whole loaf of bread, 2 packages of bacon, and nearly 2 dozen eggs. I tried to ask him about the trip, tried to get him to say anything at all, really, but all I got were grunts and uh-huhs before he lumbered back off to his bedroom. The next few days were more of the same. Kev eating an insane amount of food, sleeping for hours, and then mumbling his way through conversations. It took about a week for him to start communicating like a human being again, but even then it was stilted, awkward, unnatural. He's been home for almost a month now, and something isn't right. His voice, it changed somehow? It's still his voice, but it's like there's a second voice buried underneath it, like someone is trying to harmonize while he speaks. He lumbers around the house, like his knees are locked in place, but he refuses to go to the doctors. The worst part is the smell. It still won't go away. No matter how often or how long he showers, he still reeks like death. I could have maybe ignored all of this, maybe blame it on being isolated in the woods for weeks, but after what happened tonight, I couldn't sleep. That feeling of fear in my stomach I felt ever since he's been back hasn't gone away, and honestly, it keeps me up most nights. I was trying to will myself to sleep when I heard the back door creak open. I crept out of my bedroom and down the hall. From my viewpoint, I could see into the kitchen through the window into the backyard. I saw my brother, perched on his hands and knees. He was twitching wildly, like every muscle in his neck and head were spasming. He widened his stance and thrashed his head towards the ground and out of my line of sight. I was worried that maybe he was having some kind of seizure, so I ran out to check on him, and that, when I saw it, his head was buried deep into the carcass of one of our neighbor's cats. He was chomping down on its tiny body, blood oozing out between the gaps in his teeth. The thing had clearly been dead for at least a day or so, its body bloated, and its eyes were dull and hazy. Kevin reached inside the cat's body and started to strip off pieces of muscle and tendon, slurping them up the same way he had been eating our mother's cooking. Pressing his thumb into the thing's skull, he popped out one of its eyes and tossed it back like a grape. I ran. I ran back into the house and locked the door behind me. I was about to run back to my prost bedroom when that smell hit me. That horrible death stench that had been wafting around my brother. I opened the door to his room and inched a few feet inside. Wrapped in his bedding were the decaying bodies of 20 or so animals. Rabbits, mice, squirrels. I tried to run to my parents' room, to wake them up, to tell that we needed to call someone. As I turned around, I saw Kevin in the kitchen window, his body drenched in blood. He was eyeing me through the glass, his head tilted at an angle that shouldn't be possible. The vertebrae in his neck strained underneath his skin. He lunged at the window and I screamed. My parents woke up, then they found me in the hallway, sobbing, sweating, shaking with fear. I told them what I saw, and my dad rushed outside to try and... Well, I don't know exactly what he was trying to do, but it didn't matter. My brother was gone. We called the police, and they said it sounded like my brother had had some sort of mental crisis. Maybe he had picked up some kind of parasite in the woods that was impacting his brain chemistry. I know they're wrong, though. Whatever that thing is, it is not my brother. My brother left for the Appalachian Trail and never came back. I think whatever that black smudge was in those photos was something that hunted him, and I think it was successful. Whatever that thing was killed my brother, and somehow his body came back home. My brother disappeared, but I'm terrified he will come back. My stepmom's a monster and no one knows it. Every morning at 6 a.m. sharp, she slithers into a skin suit, wriggling and stretching it in unnatural ways just to get it to sit right. It never does. The skin just hangs, swaying with every small movement she makes. I don't know how anyone can think it looks natural, not when there is a disgusting beast underneath. To anyone who doesn't know her, she looks like a regular 44-year-old woman, with some loose skin one might assume is from weight loss. She works for the state, has a husband, and takes yearly vacations. Someone other people are jealous of. I learned she was a monster after knowing her for 6 months. We met at my 10th birthday party. My birthday is in January, but because of how cold it was, my father and I decided to wait and have a big pool party over the summer. She had a son around my age and brought him to participate in my party. Apparently, her and my father were friends years before I was born, when my mom was still alive and just settling down with my dad. I had never seen nor heard of her before, and I was curious about the random kid that had shown up at my party, non-stop talking about poop and diarrhea. I didn't get the chance to ask about him until the party started to wind down and people had left for the day, including him. Once everyone was gone, my father finally introduced me to her. She seemed nice at first. She explained the random boy was her son, and after talking to her and showing off a new nail kit I had got, they left. Little did I know this would be the biggest turning point in my life. Over the next few months, she was around the house more, staying the night every once in a while before she finally moved in. During that time, I thought she was a wonderful person. She spoiled me with manicures and shopping trips, acted like she was interested in everything I was doing. She wasn't. And it wouldn't be until 3 weeks after my 11th birthday that I would discover who she really was, or even start to. Notice the skin suit. I remember the first time I seen her true self. Her skin mask slipped just a little, just enough for me to catch a glance at what was underneath. It looked like a pulsating gray flesh tumor that had sprung out the side of her neck. It pulsed in an unnatural rhythm, nothing like a normal heart. It was fast and random. It only took her a second before she realized what was exposed and quickly hid it. I was scarred. I couldn't tear my gaze away from where the skin stuck out, trying to find the seam between the mask and the rest of the suit. I had never seen anything like it and didn't know what to do or say. She had been lecturing me about something before her true skin showed. I knew it was important, but after what I had seen, I couldn't think of anything else. After that, she wasn't as worried about hitting it from me. She would get mad and a little gray blob would stick out. Sometimes more. One time I had an accident and didn't clean the poop out of my underwear properly before putting it with the rest of my dirty cloths. She was so livid that the unnatural movements of her mouth had lifted the mask, showing a band of the gray flesh that was underneath, showing that skin still doing that unnatural pulse. This time I could see more. There were dark green veins intertwined with each other, crossing and splitting in random places. The veins pulsed a separate rhythm from the skin itself. It was more controlled, still not like any normal human heart would beat, but resembled a heartbeat better than whatever the skin was doing. Right as she was in the middle of lecturing me, we heard my dad come out of his office. He worked from home doing a coding job. He had worked there for decades before I was born, and probably will work there until the day he dies. He loves his job, waking up in the early hours of the morning just to get to work. His hours were 9 to 5, but he didn't care. Some days he would be in his office from 4 a.m. till 10 p.m. just doing his work, only leaving his office to take me to school and make dinner. She moved frantically to shove herself back into that skin suit, forgetting a little chunk on the side of her neck. My dad looked at it. I seen a slight look of disgust cross his face. I thought maybe now he would see what was underneath. I was waiting for this moment, unsure of how to bring up the gray flesh blob that was my stepmom, waiting for her to show her true self around him so I wouldn't have to explain anything, knowing even if I tried to explain, no one would believe me. It didn't work. He quickly replaced that look of disgust with slight concern as he asked what was going on. My stepmom gave him a story about all the backtalk and disrespect I was giving her during her lecture. Told him I was getting shit all over the house and intentionally left a massive turd in my underwear before throwing them down the laundry chute to be washed, smearing shit all down the sides of it. I hadn't said one thing that entire time. I looked at him in that moment, a pleading glare, trying to get him to look at that disgusting thing still pulsing from the side of her neck and understand that what she was saying was complete bullshit. But he didn't. He believed every word she said and left her to continue while he went back into his office to keep working. After that, she didn't care about keeping the mask on at home. She would walk through the door after a long day of work and peel off her mask with the same satisfied look of someone who just took their bra off after wearing it for 12 hours. She kept the mask in her pocket just in case someone showed up to the house and she needed to slip it on in a moment's notice. My father pretended that she looked the same as when she wore the mask, ignoring the ugly underneath. Her true face was like nothing I had seen before. It was that same gray color as what I had seen pop out from the side of her neck, covered in those twisting green veins. It was absolutely terrifying. Her mouth was large and gaped at an odd angle, with small fangs lining the inside. Hundreds of rows, all leading back into the abyss that was her mouth, almost like a shark's, angled backwards so anything caught can't get out. She had 2 large horns sitting just above her temples, curling back into a spiral. Horns you would expect to see Satan wearing, cracked and split in some places, with a yellow hue like unwashed teeth. The left horn was missing the very tip, having broken off who know how long ago, revealing a black abyss inside, dripping dark green goo. Now I know why she kept the hair of her skin mask so curly and large. spending hours sometimes just to get it right, to hide the horns. And then her eyes. Her eyes were an abyss of their own, but not quite. A weird, deep, unnatural green seeped out of them, the same as the horn, only to disappear into one of her face wrinkles. Her face was not even shaped like a head, resembling a bluebfish more than a prezen, with countless skin folds running horizontally across her face. Towards the back of both holes was a reflection. Light was reflecting off of something back there. Maybe an eye, but I never got close enough to confirm it, and never will. Once the mask was off, that meant my life was hell. Anything and everything that went wrong in her life got let out on me in a tirade of insults and degrading comments. She framed me for things I didn't do, so I would be in trouble with my father, making sure to ruin our relationship. She never beat me, but I think that was a part of the mind games. Everything with her was a mind game. She would starve me, giving me just a little bit of food to tell people I was being fed at home, and that was it. She intentionally cooked enough for her and my father to have full plates while giving me what was left in the pot, ensuring I couldn't get more food. She used her son in her mind games as well. Her son wasn't always around, mostly on weekends and holidays, because of the split custody. She loaded his plate with food, giving him more than what was on my father's plate sometimes. She always made sure he had everything he wanted and made sure I could see him getting it, even if what he wanted was me. Her son and I got along all right at first. He was weird and obsessed with diarrhea, but then he started participating in her mind games too. There was one time where him and I made a plan. He acted like he seen what she was doing to me and felt bad, so he wanted to make sure I got to play on my own Xbox. I had been gifted that past Christmas. We waited for them to go to sleep and went down to the spare room in the basement that used to be my dad's office before he built a new one upstairs. We took turns playing Roblox and Minecraft until it got to about 3 a.m. I was exhausted at that point and wanted to get into my bed and go to sleep. I gave the controller to him for his turn and started saying goodnight. He didn't want me to go to my bed. He wanted me to sleep in the spare room where he was supposed to sleep. I told him no, starting to get uncomfortable as co-ed sleeping was never a thing allowed or even talked about much in my house. He started to get mad, trying to block the way up the stairs. I managed to get past him into the dining room, where he continued to plead with him to just sleep down there as it would be fine. I kept insisting I didn't want to. Finally, he said, "Well, I'll just go tell my mom that you were up playing on the Xbox when you weren't supposed to." He thought that this would get me to do what he wanted, but it didn't. As a last resort, with no idea how to get out of the situation, I told him, "If you tell her, I'm going to kill myself. Right here, right now." He gave me an odd look, smirking slightly. "No, you won't," he said as he started to walk towards the stairs to go to her bedroom. I didn't budge. "Yes, I will." I reached towards the kitchen drawer that kept the knives. "I will take one of these knives and stab myself if you take one step up those stairs, right in the chest." I pulled a steak knife out of the drawer to prove my point. I had no intentions of actually doing this, but I had to make him believe I would so he would tell her. I was so scared of what my stepmom would say, what she would say to my father, that I had no other choice. I couldn't handle another day of insults about how fat I was, or how much of a manipulator and liar I supposedly was, of her lecturing and screaming at me for hours, of her making me out to be a terrible child that's disgusting for smearing shit everywhere. Even though I didn't do anything like that, it didn't matter. If she could convince my father it's something I could have done, she did. It worked. He believed me. He stopped going towards the stairs and didn't stop me from going to my room, giving me that same odd look, without the smirk this time. Of course, I would still be punished for that night, but at least I knew I had a break before she turned on me again. He ended up telling his other family what happened, and it got back to my stepmom. Nothing would stop her son from getting what he wanted, and now he had my stepmom on his side. He would get caught multiple times throughout the years trying to sneak into my room. If he was caught, I got in trouble. More time added to my grounding that was supposed to end who knows when. Only she got to decide. One time, he did manage to sneak into my room. I was asleep, so I couldn't do anything. Just sit there while I experienced a weird dream with feeling I had never felt before or could describe at the time. I know now what it was and who did it. He had taken something from me, something that I could never get back, and no one cared. Once convincing my father that I was a terrible child wasn't enough, she started convincing everyone around me, even making jokes about how I must be a monster in a skin suit because of how bad I was. The first person was my grandma. It started with questions from her about how it's going with me and my stepmom. I tried to tell her about what she did, but it was no use. My stepmom had already gotten to her, told her everything I was going to say and that it would all be lies, that I just wanted to make my stepmom out to be a bad person, not the other way around, and it broke me. It really did. Trying to tell someone the truth while they already have their own truth decided hurt. It hurt my soul in a way I had never felt pain before, and it was all my stepmonster's fault. After that, most everyone would believe her if I didn't say something first, and even then, once they talked to her, it was like a spell was placed over them. They looked at me like I was disgusting. That same hatred look that she would give me. I tried to tell people I really did. I told all my classmates at school. They believed me, but only because I didn't tell them about the skin suit. If I did, no one would believe me. I told school counselors about my home life, how she barley fed me, would put me on punishment for days for having an accident. CPS would get called, but nothing would come of it. I assume she must have put a spell on them like she did the other people. I always had accidents, and it had convinced me that everything she said was true. At some point, I was convinced she was right, that I was a terrible child, that I wasn't worthy of love, that I deserved to be ignored by my father for being a disgusting pig, that I deserved to be starved, that I deserved the mental abuse, that I deserved to be assaulted by her son. All of it started to become true. I must have been the one to do all those terrible things she claimed I did, even though I didn't remember doing it. But that's wrong. And I know now what she really is. Every morning at 6 I hear the skin suit creaking and groaning, and she shoves her non-human body into it. I never seen her fully, and don't want to. I know I'm not the terrible child, and yet, there is something there in my subconscious telling me otherwise. A voice so convincing, I have to challenge it every waking second, lest I slip into the deep depression that comes with those thoughts. I think she did something to me too, some kind of spell or otherworldly magic to make me this way, the same she used on other people to get them to believe her unbelievable stories about me. I had woken one night to her hand slithering across my face. Apparently the skin suit had gloves, and I had never seen them off. Until now. Her hands were a weird mass of withering tentacles. No wonder her fingers never looked right. It was the tentacles trying to fit into a human hand and work it like a human would. It couldn't do that, so it made the excuses of arthritis. It screamed at me about dirty laundry and my shit. I had no idea what it was talking about. But after that night, after it touched me, it's like I'm tainted. like it now has some sort of control over my thoughts, trying to make me go crazy. I refuse to, and that's why I'm writing this out. Maybe someone will believe me. Maybe it will slip up with its skin suit and someone else will see. See that it isn't a mother, but a monster. A step monster.